on the border of Washington and Livermore. So it was a little safer to stay home, I think, tonight.
Yeah.
This time of year,
feel
I would
that
not.
way in general.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I would not go at night or anywhere if I didn't have to.
I don't go anywhere. I don't have to anymore because I'm this new virus mutant.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems to go on forever.
It's scary, yeah.
Well, for the most part, if you've been vaccinated and boosted, the worst people are saying is they're getting like cold-like symptoms.
Yeah, I don't want any of it.
I don't blame you.
And the older you are, the less you want it because, you know, that could lead to something else.
Well, a friend of mine
Okay,
got
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat
We are going
shalom.
to get started with
Shalom.
services this evening. And it sounds like there's some great conversation happening. I hope that you'll continue the conversation after services or any other time. We love connection whenever it happens. So brought me a little bit of joy this evening. We are here on a day that's a regular day to most of us, but to the rest of the world, it's a little bit more special. And for some of us, our families actually are experiencing this as a special day. So we carry their joy and their hope, and we celebrate today in our way by celebrating Shabbat. So we will begin by getting into the Shabbat spirit. We will take a deep breath in, a deep breath out. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da da da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da da da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da da da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da da da. Yai da 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 da. It's my pleasure to invite Mara Shade to light the Shabbat candles for us this evening. We are on pages 120 and 121.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'had l'kner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. We are on page 132 as we sing about light. Ya-da-da, 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 ya-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da, 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 ya-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Or zaru ala tzadik ul yishrei lev simcha. Or zaru ala tzadik ul yishrei lev simcha. Ya-da-da, 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 ya-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da, 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 ya-da-da-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da, 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 ya-da-da-da-da-da-da. We are on page 138 as we sing Lecha Dodi, and we'll be singing the melody that we began singing last week, which captures the wedding that we're celebrating between God and the Jewish people. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmi'anu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad u'shmo echad, L'shemo tiferet v'litchila, Lecha dodi likrat kala B'nei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala B'nei Shabbat nekabela Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Ki hi mekor habracha Merosh mikedem nesucha Sof ma'aseh B'machshava tchila Lecha dodi Likrat kala B'nei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi Likrat kala B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Please rise in all the ways you're able. Boi v'shalom ateret bala Gam besimcha uv'tzohala Toch emunei am segula Boi chala Boi chala Lecha dodi Likrat kala B'nei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi Likrat kala B'nei Shabbat nekabela B'nei Shabbat nekabela. We remain upright as we continue with the Baruch Hu on page 146. Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Please be seated. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Borei yom v'layla, bolel or mipnei choshech, bolel becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Boreol v'layla, bolel mipnei choshech, bolel mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Page 152. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, uvlechtecha v'derech, uvshochbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם emet. It's my pleasure to invite up Ann Anderson to share a reading regarding Mi Chamocha.
Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravaged by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
Oh no. This is a problem with having hair. So we are going to sing Mi Chamocha, which is about miracles. And this melody was written by a Jewish person about something that also seems a little miraculous. Maybe he had Exodus in mind as he was thinking about crossing something that should not be able to be crossed, something like water or like air in the form of flying. You might know the melody. Feel free to sing along if you do, and if not, if you catch on, then you can sing along as well. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar bakodesh, nora tehilot o sefele, nora tehilot o sefele, malchutcha ra'u banecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam. Ze Elianu ve'amru, Adonai yimlech le'olam va'ed, mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar bakodesh, nora tehilot o sefele, nora tehilot o sefele. That is a melody that we all know and love, written by a Jewish person. So if it's not on J license, they really should get on that. We are on page 160 as we think about protection and rest. Let's pause for a moment to think about the rest that we are looking for this Shabbat. And we turn to page 160 for the words of Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamideinu shomreinu, v'chayim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion and trust. Hashkiveinu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamideinu shomreinu l'chaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkiveinu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamideinu shomreinu l'chaim. 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 We now come to the tefillah, the core part of our service. Please rise in all the ways you are able, and we are on page 164. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Kornei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, mechaye hakol atah rav lehoshia. Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem. Mechalkel chayim bechesed. Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim v'rofei cholim. Umatir asurim. Umekayem emunato lishenei afar. Michamocha ba'al gevurot. Umido melach. Melech memit umechayeh, umatmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata l'hachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yehallelujah selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. We turn to page 178 as we pray for peace with the words of Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Please take a moment for your own silent prayer and be seated when you are ready. Yihiyu leratzon imrei fi vehegyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri, Adonai Suri Begoali Iyu leratzon imrei fi vehegyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri, Adonai Suri Begoali. feels like the past few weeks, months, however long we want to decide, we've been talking about things that are so heavy, so gosh darn heavy. And so I figured that tonight was a great night to switch it up and do something a little light and a little silly. So I wanted to share a story about a place called Helm. In Hasidic lore, Helm was this place where the people of Helm thought that they were very wise and very knowledgeable, and everybody else who hears about them, they're kind of a little confused as to why they think so. So I hope that you enjoy the story, and it's not about a silent house where there's not even a mouse or whatever that story is. We'll be reading a different story, but we're enjoying some Jewish storytelling this evening. The story is called The Building of Helm. When God made the world, God also made the souls of all people. God placed the souls of the wise in one sack over here, and then the souls of all of the fools in another over here, and commanded one of the angels to distribute them equally around the earth. The angel took both of the sacks and off they went. They flew over the lands of the earth, sprinkling a handful of the wise souls over here and a handful of the foolish ones over here, everywhere that he went, so that there would be equal numbers of wise people and fools, and that they would be born. But in a certain place, the angel grew a little careless. Remember, the angel's going all over the world, and at a certain point, you do this enough times, and then this enough times, and then you start losing track. And he was flying over a high mountain, and he got one of the sacks caught up in the crown of a tree. And he tugged it free because he had places to go. He had to sprinkle some here and sprinkle some here, and this tree was getting in the way, and it tore a huge hole in the sack. All of the remaining souls fell out onto the ground. And so it was that all the people who were born in that spot were to be clever or sharp-witted or ingenious. He had torn one of the holes, which he thought was the wise sack. They became famous throughout Poland, and their great deeds swelled with renown of the city, which they themselves called Helm. Once upon a time, the Helmites decided that they needed to build themselves some proper houses. There was no lack of timber, there were trees everywhere, and the mountain on which the careless angel had dropped the souls of their ancestors was thickly overgrown with trees. And so the Helmites selected the stoutest of them, the strongest of them, and picked the largest trees, the largest trunks that they had. And they were so large and so heavy that it would take the 10 strongest people to lift them up and then walk them down this hill. And think about, I don't know how many of you go towards Warm Springs on Paseo Padre, but it's pretty steep. It's even steeper than that. It's some crazy steepness we're going on, and they're carrying these heavy trees and heavy branches. And so they would take these 10 strong people, carry them down, and then it would be able to be used to build a house. And so the Helmites carried timber for a month, but they still had more of it up on the mountain than down. And as they were carrying down a huge trunk, a Jew from Lithuania, not from Helm, a different place, happened to pass by and said, "Why waste so much effort? If you were only to give those trees a good shove, it would roll down the mountain, and then you wouldn't have to worry about it so much anymore. And they would just roll on their own accord, and you'd save yourself all this work." And the Helmites could have kicked themselves. They couldn't believe they hadn't thought of such a thing. And they decided that they would consider this foreigner's advice, and they stroked their beards or their chins if they didn't have a beard. And then they decided, you know what? We have sat in council for 7 days and 7 nights, and we have decided that from now on, we shall roll all of the logs down from the mountain. Why should we carry them on our shoulders for nothing? So they wrote a long entry in their book of rules and of lessons. And then all of the elders confirmed in writing that not only the inhabitants of Helm, but also the Jews of Lithuania, they had both had good ideas. It was all a good idea that they had. Okay, our friends on Zoom, you're back. We took an intermission just to make sure you didn't miss any seconds of this delicious story. So anyways, they decided that they would, make sure everybody knew that it's not that the Lithuanians were smarter than them. They all considered the idea. They all thought it was a good one. And so the next day, the Helmites, to show just how smart they were, picked up all of the trees that they had brought down to the bottom of the mountain, and they picked it up and they marched it right back up to the top of the mountain so that they could show that they could roll it back down to the bottom of the mountain, as was written in the book that they had just, in their book of rules. And so then they decided that they had gotten enough wood together, and they took up their saws and their axes and their hammers and their planes, and the whole town was filled with mighty sawing and banging, and houses appeared one after another after another. We've seen a bunch of that happen here in Fremont. There's just a lot of building that needs to be done. And so in Helm, what they decided to do was to conserve resources. So they measured each person, and to the tallest person in that house, that was how they measured the height of the doors and of the ceilings. Because obviously any other person who will ever enter the house will be the same height as them, I guess. And so they all built their houses exactly to the standards that they had measured and had a roof over their heads, and they congratulated themselves because they had conserved so much timber. And so they were very proud of themselves. However, they realized that they had forgotten to build a shul. They needed to build a shul, and not just anywhere. They needed to build it in the middle of Helm. That's where they decided that they needed to build it. The issue was the trees were too big and the roads were too small. And how were they going to get all of these trees over to where the synagogue was going to be built? So they again came together. They sat for 7 days and 7 nights. They stroked their beards or their chins, and they thought to themselves, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Aha, I got it. We're going to knock down half of Helm, the half, if you will, the half between where the shul will be and where the mountain is, so that we can just roll it down the way that we had before. Obviously, how had we not thought of this before? And so after they had conserved all of that timber, they had to throw it all out because they had to knock it all down to then roll the logs down. There we go. Thank you. So finally they had their synagogue built. They had their mikvah, or their bathhouse, and they were excited to finally pray, but they realized they needed seats in order to pray in the seats, or to pray in the shul. And so they figured, well, with the wood that we're going to build, we're going to need it to be smooth so there's not splinters. However, someone else said, well, if it's too smooth, people are going to slip off. They're going to be slipping off when they're praying. And can you imagine how uncomfortable that would be if you keep on falling? You're going to have to hold on to the backs of the seats or something. That doesn't seem quite right. And so, again, they pondered. And they decided that what they would do is they would do gam v'gam. They would do both. They would have the smooth side on the bottom, and they would have the unfinished side, which could give you splinters, as the side that you would sit on. And that was how they designed their synagogue in Helm, and that is the building of Helm. They have their homes, they have their synagogue, they have their new way to continue building. And that is where we will end for today. And we thank our Hasidic ancestors for coming up with such an absurd story. And we will shift from the absurd to toward thoughts of healing. We think of those who are in need of healing of body, healing of spirit, and healing of soul. If you are thinking of anybody who's in need of healing at this time, please feel free to type their names in the chat, to say their names aloud to somebody else in the room with you. Or if you're in the sanctuary with us, please share their names aloud or in your heart as my hand passes over your section. We'll pause a moment if there are people still typing. For all those names that we've said aloud, that we've typed, and that we keep in our hearts, we turn to page 371 for the words of Mi Sheberach. Mi Sheberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Le'avotenu. May the source of strength, who bless bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We continue with our concluding prayers, beginning with Aleinu on page 586. Please rise in all the ways you're able. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, velo samanu kamishpachot adama, shelo sam chalkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, vanachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. V'nemar v'haya Adonai v'melech al kol haaretz bayom hahu, bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo, u'shemo, u'shemo echad. Please be seated. We take this time to think about those whose lives were a blessing in our lives. As your loved one's name is read, please rise. We are in the period of Shloshim, the 30-day period since burial for Michael Klein, brother of Janice Fontano. And we remember the yard sites of the following people: Molly Bressler, remembered by Ted Bressler; Bella Hertzberg, remembered by Michelle Eisenbrecht; James Cahalis, remembered by Susan Toth; Sadie Kaiser, mother of Stanley Kaiser; Herbert Nagel, husband of Barbara Nagel; Manuel Phillips, father of Marla Morris; Judith Friend Silverberg, mother of Shauna Silverberg Reina; Paul Stein, remembered by Amos Picker; Murray Titel, father of Mara Shade; Vera Wilbert, mother of Phoebe Weiner; Willie Morris, husband of Marla Morris; Jerry Swartz, remembered by Ann Anderson. We now invite all who are observing their first year of mourning to rise at this time. And we now rise as a community with our mourners as we say the words of the Mourner's Kaddish, page 598. Yitzgadal v'yitzkadash Shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach chirute v'yamlich malchute, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו amen. Zichronam livracha. May all of their memories be for a blessing. Please be seated. Oseh shalom bimromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. It's my pleasure now to announce that there are announcements, and the person who will share that with us is our trustee president, Rick Brodzinski.
Magically zoom it to me. Overshot. There we go. I have my remote control. Shabbat Shalom
Shabbat Shalom.
and happy 24th of December. Join us next week, Friday, December 31st, for a brief virtual-only Shabbat blessing and mourner's Kaddish at 5:30 p.m. The links to attend will be in the weekly email. The Jewish Family Service of Silicon Valley's annual Embrace a Family program has been extended through the end of the year. Once again, the program is entirely virtual. Please check the social action page on our website for details and instructions. This year, with so many new refugee arrivals and economic health challenges for many in our community, we're counting on your strong support. As you've noticed, we recently began offering challah and juice and kosher wine at the end of services. We are looking for people to sponsor Shabbat blessings by providing these items for a given Shabbat. If you'd like to participate, please contact Mara in the office. And as all of us here, as we learn to deal with the latest variant, please partake of your wine or juice and challah out in the breezeway. Schmoozing in the social hall with masks is encouraged. And speaking of challah and drinks, it's been a while since we had to think about it, so please remember that everything we serve them in, the Kiddush cups and the paper wrappers, is compostable and should be disposed of in the green bin. Thank you to Ann Anderson for representing the worship committee this evening. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. kind of like the name Shablessings.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shablessings. Maybe that's what we're going to start calling them. I'm here for it. We shall continue on with some Shablessings, if you will, starting off with a family blessing. So if you could close your eyes and think of family members who you are sending blessings to this evening. If you would like to reach out to people in your midst, you're also more than welcome to do so. And we share this blessing. May God bless you and keep you. May God shine God's face upon you and be gracious to you. May God's face turn to you and grant you peace, to which we say, Amen. And now we say Kiddush. In this cute little Kiddush cup. Okay, and the words are on page 123 if you would like to follow along. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim ki vanu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. L'chaim. Now we will bless the motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon. We will close out this evening with some simple words. Shabbat Shalom. My pick has run away from us. That's okay. It's decided to get ready for Shabbat a little early. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Happy December
Shalom.
24th. Have a great rest of your Shabbat.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Can we see?
I
the
think
table?
Jingle